Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today, we are following a major escalation in the Russia-Ukraine war, and the world is watching closely as a wave of drone and missile strikes by Ukraine has changed the battlefield once again. On October 6, 2025, Ukraine launched what analysts are calling one of the largest coordinated assaults inside Russian territory since the war began in February 2022. The attacks were not symbolic, they were highly targeted, precision-based, and devastating. According to early reports, Ukraine hit several key Russian military and energy infrastructures, including the Sverdlov ammunition plant located deep in Nizhny Novgorod, an oil terminal in Crimea, and a massive weapons depot in the Donbas region. The scale and timing of these strikes indicate a clear message from Kyiv that Ukrainian forces now possess both the capability and the intent to strike far beyond the front lines to hit Russia where it hurts economically and militarily. People on the ground described a night sky filled with roaring engines, streaks of light, and thunderous explosions echoing through multiple Russian cities. Within hours, footage began circulating online showing bright fireballs lighting up the sky over the oil terminal in Crimea as black smoke rose miles into the air. Russian emergency units rushed to contain the fires, but satellite images confirmed extensive damage across several installations. These were not random attacks. They were carefully synchronized operations that demonstrate a high level of intelligence, coordination, and drone warfare advancement. Ukrainian officials later confirmed that over 50 drones and 10 long-range missiles were deployed in this single offensive, targeting logistics routes, ammunition storage, and energy pipelines that fuel Russian operations inside Ukraine and beyond. What makes this attack even more significant is the claim made by President Volodymyr Zelensky, who revealed that Ukrainian investigators had discovered more than 100,000 foreign-made components inside captured Russian drones. He stated that British-made microcomputers and other European electronics were found powering the drones used in the recent Russian strikes against Ukrainian cities. This revelation sent shockwaves across Western capitals, as it suggests that despite strict international sanctions, Russia has been able to acquire critical parts through black markets, third-party networks, and covert suppliers. Zelensky described it as a technological betrayal that allows Russian weapons to keep killing civilians, while global manufacturers remain unaware or silent. In retaliation and as part of a new counter-offensive strategy, Ukraine launched precision strikes on Russian-occupied Crimea, targeting energy facilities that support Russian military logistics. Among the most dramatic was the attack on the oil depot in Feodosia, where massive explosions created fire columns visible for miles. Witnesses reported continuous detonations as fuel tanks ignited one after another. The explosions lasted through the night, while Russian emergency units struggled to prevent the fire from spreading to nearby infrastructure. Ukrainian military sources said the strike was aimed at crippling the fuel supplies that feed Russian airbases operating from Crimea. Analysts believe this marks a turning point in the conflict, where Ukraine is no longer limiting itself to defensive actions, but fully embracing an offensive posture deep inside Russian-controlled areas. Russian media initially tried to downplay the scale of destruction, calling it a minor incident caused by a drone malfunction. But videos shared across social media platforms, including Telegram and X, formerly Twitter, told a different story. Flames engulfed the depot, sending shockwaves across the peninsula, and residents reported windows shattered miles away from the blast zone. This visual evidence forced Russian officials to later admit that critical fuel reserves were destroyed, causing temporary disruptions to military operations and energy deliveries. The timing of the Ukrainian attack coincided with growing reports that Russian forces were preparing a renewed push along the Eastern Front, possibly around Avdiivka and Kupiansk regions, suggesting that Kiev intended to derail those preparations. Military experts see this operation as part of Ukraine's broader strategy to weaken Russia's war economy by targeting infrastructure that sustains the invasion. Every hit on an ammunition factory or oil terminal reduces the supply lines that keep the Russian war machine running. The message is simple. Ukraine is expanding its reach and demonstrating that no Russian target is beyond its capabilities. This shift also comes amid reports that Western allies are providing Ukraine with enhanced long-range drone technologies. Though most governments publicly deny direct involvement in offensive planning, there is growing evidence that Ukrainian engineers have successfully localized advanced Western technology, adapting it into their domestic drone production. As the smoke clears from this massive assault, both sides continue to exchange accusations and threats. The Kremlin has vowed retaliation, promising what it called symmetrical and devastating responses, while Ukrainian officials insist that these strikes are legitimate acts of defense designed to end the occupation of sovereign Ukrainian land. This new phase of the war has heightened global concern, with NATO officials warning that the conflict could spiral into a broader confrontation if Russian reprisals cross European borders, especially after earlier missile debris landed in Poland last month, reigniting fears of escalation. Inside Ukraine, the public response has been mixed. Pride and worry coexist. Citizens cheer the effectiveness of their military, but remain anxious about the inevitable retaliation that follows each successful strike. Power outages, sirens, and the hum of drones have become part of daily life, yet morale remains high. Ukrainians see each attack on Russian soil as a step closer to justice, as a symbol that their nation will not be intimidated by a larger aggressor. Social media feeds are filled with national flags, songs, and messages of resilience, calling for continued resistance no matter how long it takes. International reaction to these events has been swift. Western nations have reiterated support for Ukrainian sovereignty, but also expressed concern over the potential escalation within Russia itself. Protests and unrest have reportedly grown among families of soldiers demanding answers after explosions rocked industrial regions previously considered safe. Russian state television remains tightly controlled, but online independent journalists have shown images of burning facilities, contradicting official claims of minimal damage. These reports reveal growing frustration within Russian society about how the war is being managed and the human and economic cost of ongoing operations. Analysts point out that the strategic value of targeting the Sverdlov ammunition plant cannot be overstated. The plant produces key artillery shells and explosive components used in Russian operations across the Eastern Front. By striking it, Ukraine disrupted one of the main logistical arteries of the Russian military machine. Similarly, hitting an oil terminal in Crimea strikes at the heart of Russia's logistical lifeline, as the peninsula remains a central hub for resupplying troops in southern Ukraine. This dual strike, combined with the destruction in Donbas, has the potential to reduce Russian offensive capabilities for weeks, if not months, ahead. Ukraine's new approach also highlights the evolution of drone warfare. Since the early days of the conflict, what started as small tactical quadcopters for reconnaissance has evolved into complex swarms of autonomous weapons capable of deep penetration into enemy territory. Powered by artificial intelligence, navigation, and satellite guidance, these drones can evade radar systems and strike with pinpoint accuracy, a method that both demonstrates Ukraine's technological ingenuity and exposes the vulnerability of Russian defenses. With each successful attack, Kiev proves that warfare in the 21st century is no longer about sheer numbers, but about precision, intelligence, and adaptability. But this escalation also comes with serious risks. Experts warn that the deeper Ukraine strikes into Russian territory, the greater the possibility that Moscow will retaliate using long-range ballistic systems or even threaten nuclear escalation to deter further attacks. The international community is watching nervously as each new development pushes both nations closer to a dangerous threshold. Yet, despite these warnings, Ukraine shows no sign of backing down. Zelensky has repeatedly stated that peace will only come when every inch of occupied territory, including Crimea, is liberated. His latest speeches emphasize that Russia cannot be allowed to rebuild its military unchecked, and that the world must confront the flow of Western-made technology being used against Ukrainian civilians. The revelation about the foreign-made drone parts has become a major controversy in itself. Investigators believe that many of these components were smuggled through intermediary nations and disguised as civilian electronics before being integrated into Russian military hardware. London and Washington have both launched investigations into how these parts bypassed export controls. The discovery of British microcomputers in Russian kamikaze drones used to bomb Ukrainian cities has raised serious ethical and political questions across Europe. Companies linked to the supply chain claim ignorance, saying that small components like circuit boards are nearly impossible to track once they enter global distribution. But critics argue that stronger monitoring and transparency are urgently needed to prevent future misuse. As reports of the Feodosia oil depot fire continue to circulate, satellite data reveals extensive damage, with black plumes visible hundreds of kilometers away. Russian social media channels tried to censor videos, but clips leaked by locals show firefighters overwhelmed by the intensity of the blaze. Explosions continued for more than 8 hours as fuel tanks detonated one by one. This attack not only damaged infrastructure, but also struck at Russian morale. Crimea has long been portrayed by the Kremlin as secure and untouchable. Its vulnerability, now exposed, sends a psychological blow across Russian society, reminding them that the war can reach their doorstep. Economists are already predicting ripple effects from these events. Oil supply disruptions could raise local fuel prices and create logistical bottlenecks across southern Russia. For Ukraine, this disruption serves as both a tactical and symbolic victory, demonstrating that years of occupation have not broken their resolve. Each successful strike reinforces the narrative that Ukraine is regaining momentum and that advanced technology is leveling the playing field between David and Goliath on the world stage. The human cost, however, continues to rise. Both nations report casualties, though official numbers remain unverified. Ukrainian air defense units remain on high alert, expecting retaliatory missile barrages, while Russian families wait for updates on missing personnel in the attacked regions. Humanitarian organizations warn that every escalation worsens the civilian toll on both sides, yet the war machine grinds on with no clear end in sight. The lines between offense and defense blur further each day as technology replaces traditional warfare tactics. Drones become the eyes and fists of modern conflict, changing how nations fight and how the world perceives power. The events of October 6 mark more than just another round of strikes. They signal the evolution of the war itself. The use of long-range drones, the exposure of Western parts in Russian weapons, and the direct targeting of strategic infrastructure all point toward a conflict entering its most technologically advanced phase yet. This is no longer the static trench warfare of early 2023. This is an algorithm-driven, high-precision battle fought across borders, airspaces, and data networks. As night falls over Eastern Europe, the fires in Crimea still burn, and the world wonders what tomorrow will bring. Will Russia retaliate with even greater force? Will Western nations tighten sanctions, or will diplomacy finally emerge from the shadows? For now, The only certainty is uncertainty. Both sides remain locked in a deadly cycle of strike and counterstrike, and the truth is that every explosion echoes far beyond the battlefield. It shakes economies, policies, and the fragile balance of global power. This is the reality of 2025, a world watching as technology and war merge into one, a world witnessing Ukraine sending a message across continents that it will fight on its terms no matter the cost, and a world that knows deep down that the next move could redefine everything. Stay tuned as this story continues to unfold, because what happens in this war will not stay confined to Ukraine or Russia. It will shape the future of global conflict, the future of security, and perhaps the future of peace itself. Thanks for watching. For more updates, subscribe to our channel, like, and share this video.